Yeah, there's a fishing tournament. It also reduces, yeah, the fishing licenses are free. Free fishing weekend, which is Labor Day weekend.
I have no idea.
Those are the only.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And you're
powder?
Will the Senate please come to order?
Ooh.
We'll take a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we will move to third reading of H91. Excuse me. Oh, orders of the day. Small details are important. Third reading for H91. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading.
H91, an act relating to the Vermont Homeless Emergency Assistance and Responsive Transition to Housing Program.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed H91 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Wow, that goes back. We now have H472. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading.
H472, an act relating to professions and occupations regulated by the Office of Professional Regulation.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
Mr. President, yesterday I'd asked about some fee increases. In 2023, there was $5.4 million into professional Office of Professional Regulations that we had voted in. And I am still dismayed that they're having some money problems, but I just wanted to kind of set the record clear that they have had some increases in the past. And still not going to keep me from voting for this, but I just wanted to let the senators be aware. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we have passed H472 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to pass over H319.
We will pass over H319. We have on the calendar for action H480, which was passed by the House on March 18th of 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Education, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears in today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the appropriations of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Education. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H480, an act relating to miscellaneous amendments to education law.
I recognize the senator from Rutland District, Senator Weeks, for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President.
On behalf of my colleagues on the Education Committee, I bring you H480, an act relating to miscellaneous education amendments. You're invited to follow along in today's calendar on page 2756. So the bluff 600, just to settle the chamber. The committee is going to do a section by section exercising for the committee members. So first, section 1 relates to school safety. This section amends Act 29, last year's School Safety Act, to recognize lessons learned over the past year. Act 29 dealt with fire and emergency preparedness drills and safety patrols regarding emergency preparedness and operations plans and drills, visitor procedures, and behavioral threat assessment teams. So instead of requiring schools to just establish a behavioral threat assessment team by July 1st of this year, it instead requires the establishment of these teams and ID the members of the team no later than July 1 of this year. So very minor change, but a change. Then it further amends Section 5 to require the implementation of these comprehensive behavioral threat assessment teams no later than October 1 of this year. It pushes out the effective date of the Emergency Operations Plan statute from July of last year to July of this year. Obviously, pretty significant lesson learned there. It pushes out the effective dates of the behavioral threat assessment data collection from July of this year to 2 years into the future of July of 2027 to allow the gathering of a longer timeline of experience. Section 2 also relates to school safety. It clarifies the requirement for schools to have a behavioral threat assessment team, policies and procedures. So the school board is responsible for policies and the superintendent is responsible for procedures. That's simple. Section 3 is a post-secondary school, it relates to post-secondary schools chartered in Vermont. This is essentially a housekeeping amendment to the list of post-secondary schools that are accredited and approved to operate in Vermont, reflecting that some have closed and some have changed their name. So sadly, we delete the following universities: College of St. Joe's, Goddard College, Green Mountain College, Marlborough College, New England Culinary Institute, Southern Vermont College, and changes the name of the Vermont Law School to the Vermont Law School Law and Graduate, Vermont Law and Graduate School. Section 4, very simple, relates to food, nutrition contracts, and public bids. This amendment exempts cost thresholds on contracts for the purchase of food made for nonprofit school food service accounts. Again, very simple. Section 5 relates to virtual learning. It codifies a requirement that AOE maintains access to and oversight of virtual learning providers for the purpose of offering virtual learning opportunities to Vermont students, which continues to be an allowable option under the Flexible Pathways programs. Section 6 also relates to virtual learning. Updates the definition of virtual learning in the Flexible Pathway definition section to bring it in alignment with other statutes. Section 7, BOCES Startup Grant Program. It amends the BOCES Startup Grant Program, and BOCES, just as a reminder, is a mechanism for school districts to band together for shared business purposes. This change would allow supervisory unions that are exploring the formation of a BOCES to apply for and receive their startup grant, which is $10,000, rather than waiting until after the BOCES is formed to be eligible for the grant. Again, simple change. The lesson learned here is the expense of the BOCES setup arrangement is up front, not after the formation. So at this point, I would like to yield the floor to the Senator from Chittenden to cover section 8, 9, and 10.
The Senator from Rutland yields to the Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 8 of the bill is a small change to our Flexible Pathways initiative to ensure that resources are provided regarding the admissions process and requirements necessary to proceed with military-related opportunities as part of flexible pathways. Section 9 of the bill is a change important to the search process for the Secretary of Education. This largely came over from the other chamber and is in recognition of the need to start the search process for the Secretary of Education in a timely manner. I hope someone will tell the senior senator from Addison that we're also changing no fewer to not fewer. But other than that, it sets a specific time frame for the governor to let the Board of Education know his preferred candidate qualifications and experience, and to initiate the candidate selection process. It also authorizes the state board to receive Agency of Education funds to help them with the search process. Section 10 is a small but meaningful change to those in the world of literacy education and literacy tutoring. I know that there are others in the chamber who have more experience with the literacy bill and its specific focus on the early years of literacy building from kindergarten through third grade. There was a section of the bill that cut off a particular provision on reading instruction at third grade, and literacy tutors and advocates came to us to say that that felt like a bigger change than we intended, that didn't provide the same level of attention and care to those in grades 4 through 12. And then they worked with our formal literacy educators in our education organizations and our districts to come up with some pretty simple language to reintroduce grades 4 through 12 into this section. And the word on page 2764 significantly had some days of debate, but this does have a standard that goes along with it in policy and practice, that we want to make sure that students at any grade do not fall significantly below proficiency standards before assigning them additional support and the possibility of a literacy tutor. And with that, Mr. President, I yield to the senator from Addison.
Senator from Chittenden yields to the senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senator from Chittenden, for that report. I stand today before you to report sections 11, 12, and 13. Section 11 is going to be amendment to 16 VSA State Statute 2857, the Vermont National Guard Tuition Benefit Program. This program was originally established in 1999, and it provides tuition coverage for active Vermont National Guard members in good standing regardless of their state of residence. This program plays an important role in retaining our service members by supporting their educational advancements while encouraging to continue serving in the Guard. The most recent updates are mainly housekeeping changes and designed to enhance the education benefits of the Vermont National Guard members. Part C, eligibility, was struck and replaced with specific language, to specify both undergraduate and graduate degrees are now eligible for coverage. This change was to provide clarity. Paragraph 3, at a non-Vermont approved post-secondary educational institution approved by Title IV funding, but only when the degree program is not available in Vermont. This ensures that a Guard member can pursue the degrees and certifications that are not offered here in Vermont. Section D was totally struck. And then we go to section G, paragraph 2, and its adjustment to clarify that a member can pursue multiple degrees multiple degrees and geez, I'm trying. Credentials, geez, with the total cost capped at twice the in-state tuition under the degree of UVM. And finally, there was a strike of General House Military Affairs, and it was just to add government operations in military affairs. Section 12, 16 VSA 1468 is added to read. This is to add to read acute cardiac events in schools. I would like to express my gratitude to all the stakeholders who worked together to develop this language for this bill. Thanks to AOE, the Vermont Heart Association, and many others, we had a solid piece of legislation that has been carefully crafted by all. This bill is especially critical because it potentially saves life. We heard testimony showing different outcomes can be depending on whether we have the necessary equipment during a cardiac emergency. This provision in this section outlines how schools and athletic programs must respond to a cardiac emergency, including sudden cardiac arrest in an education setting. We had definitions of an automated external defibrillator, an AED, cardiac emergency plan, and a sudden cardiac arrest. Key provisions of this were the cardiac emergency response plan. This ensures every school district and independent school is required to develop a cardiac emergency response plan. And as well, an athletic emergency action plan, an AEAP. Schools and athletic programs must establish an AEAP. In summary, this provision aims to improve safety and preparedness in schools' athletic programs, ensuring that all schools have proper planned equipment training to handle a cardiac emergency. And finally, section 3 is fairly easy. That is just implementation of this during the 26-27 school year. Thank you, Mr. President. I now yield to the senator from Rutland.
Senator from Addison yields to the senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm carrying on with section 14, which is energy performance contracting, again, obviously related to schools. This amends the statute regarding energy performance contracting in school construction to allow school districts to enter into energy performance contracts from a 10-year limit to a 20-year limit without needing voter approval. Greater than 20 years still requires voter approval. The change recognizes that these projects potentially need longer terms to realize cost recuperation. Section 15. Section 15 deals with school library material selection procedures. This amends the policies and procedures to clarify that school boards are responsible for the development of policies for material selection, and superintendents are responsible for the development of procedures for the reconsideration and retention of materials. Section 16 deals with the exemption to the moratorium on new approved independent schools. So this is not an inflammatory change. This simply amends the moratorium on the approval of new independent schools by clarifying that a therapeutic approved independent school, which is converting from a for-profit school to a nonprofit school, absent any other changes, shall not affect the approval status of the school. Okay, I now yield, Mr. President, to the senator from Rutland.
Senator from Rutland yields to the senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be reporting sections 17 and 18 of H 480, which pertain to cell phones and electronic media use in schools. Section 17 adds a new subchapter to Title 16, Chapter 9, regarding the use of cell phones, personal electronic devices, and social media in schools. Section 581 is an intent section indicating that the General Assembly's intent for all students to access the benefits of a phone in social media-free school environment. Section 582 covers definitions for this subchapter. Section 583 requires AOE in consultation with the Vermont School Board Association, the Vermont Independent School Association, and a representative from the Vermont Coalition for Phone and Social Media Free Schools to develop a model policy to prohibit students' use of cell phones and non-school issued personal electronic devices that connect to the cellular networks, the internet, or have wireless capabilities at school from arrival to dismissal. The model policy is required to allow the use of such devices if the use is required as a part of an individual healthcare plan, an IEP, or a 504 plan. If it's approved by an administrator for an academic, athletic, or co-curricular purpose for the most limited use reasonably possible, or required for compliance with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. Beginning in the 26-27 school year, public schools and approved independent schools are required to develop policies at least as comprehensive as the model policy, and if they fail to adopt a policy, they shall be presumed to have adopted the most current model policy. Section 584 prohibits schools, school districts, and supervisory unions from using social media to communicate directly with students unless the program or platform is approved for such communication by the school district or an independent school, and such approved communication program or platform shall allow school officials to archive all communications and prevent all communications from being edited or deleted once a communication has been sent. And requiring students to use social media for out-of-school academic work, school sports, extracurricular clubs, or other out-of-school school-sponsored activities. AOE is required to develop a model policy on or before January 1st, 2026. Section 18 covers the implementation. School boards are required to adopt policies on or before July 1st, 2026 to be effective in the 26-27 school year. And this is effective upon passage of H 480. And I yield back to my colleague from Rutland.
Senator from Rutland yields back to the senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, my colleague from Rutland. So section 19, the final section, effective dates. All sections take effect upon passage except the following. Section 8, which was the military-related post-secondary opportunities, and section 13, which is the cardiac emergency response plans. The implementation takes effect on July 1, 2025. And section 12, which also deals with the cardiac emergency response plans about the 2026-2027 school year implementation, takes effect on July 1 of 2026. The committee took testimony from the following. Cardiac arrest survivor from Milton High School, associate executive director from the Vermont School Board Association, the executive director of the Vermont School Board Association, the chair of the Advisory Council on Literacy, Representative Peter Conlon, the chair of the House Committee on Education, the school safety program manager of the Vermont School Safety Center, the executive director of the Vermont NEA, a lobbyist from the middle school, a representative from Action Circles, a literacy tutor, the deputy adjutant general of the Vermont National Guard, Senator Ruth Hardy, the sponsor of one of the amendments, the interim director of communications from the AOE, the athletic trainer from the Rutland Regional Medical Center, project manager of Act 28 Literacy Initiative from AOE, English Language Arts Coordinator from AOE, Vice President of VSAC, the Safety Coordinator from the Brattleboro High School, Attorney and Chief Negotiator for the Vermont Educational Employees Health Care Commission, the Executive Director of the Vermont Superintendents Association, Executive Director of Vermont Principals Association, the Interim Director of Operations from AOE, the school nurse leader from Wyndham, Southeast Supervisory Union, the representative of the Vermont Independent Schools Association, the superintendent of Slate Valley Unified School District, the head athletic trainer from Rice Memorial High School, the chair of Vermont Board of Education, Vermont State Board of Education, the education services officer from the Vermont National Guard, Beth St. James, and Sophie Zadaki from the Office of Legislative Counsel, and the Government Relations Regional Lead from the American Heart Association. Back to the Bluff, the committee vote was 6-0-0. The Education Committee welcomes the full chamber to support H106. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. I would now like to recognize the senator from Washington District, Senator Watson, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations Committee did take a look at this, and there were a few parts of this bill that affected how some pots of money could be spent, but there was no new spending here. So just for example, who's eligible for the BOCES grant program and how the Vermont National Guard tuition benefit program could be spent. And we were fine with all of that, and so we did not have any amendment to offer. And so we recommend that this bill pass in concurrence, and that was on a vote of 7-0-0. Thank you.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden. Hang on, please. Okay. Senator from Chittenden.
Okay, so this is not the appropriations amendment that we're, okay, great.
The appropriations was a report,
Perfect.
not an amendment.
Thank you. I would like to interrogate, please, Mr. President, the senator from Rutland, the first reporter from
The
Rutland.
tall senator from Rutland?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. President, I am curious about the behavioral threat assessment teams. I know this is something we worked on last year. I'm wondering if a student is identified as a threat or a behavioral risk, what's the process to work with that student? Is the student expelled from school, or is there a process by which the school tries to counsel the student?
Thank you, Mr. President. Given that the senator from Chittenden is an alumni of the Education Committee, during the period of time we were discussing the threat assessment teams, what I'll try to do is, to the best of my recollection, share that there is a process, that's the whole idea of the threat assessment team, to see what the behavior, to analyze the behavior of the student from a non-threatening perspective, and the reaction of the threat assessment team, which is a team, not an individual, would be determined on the severity and the type of potential threat that could have been exhibited by the student, and then appropriate resolution would then be considered by the threat assessment team.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. And also, in that same regard, independent schools tend to have a looser standard when it comes to expulsion and less oversight and transparency. I'm wondering, did you talk about how a threat would be dealt with in an independent school versus a public school?
Thank you, Mr. President. To my recollection, a threat in an approved independent school would be dealt with no different than any other school. I'm not aware that their policies are any different, that they're actually under the same auspices of creating and exercising a threat assessment team as a public school.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I have another question for the same reporter, if I may. Thank you, Mr. President. Around the BOCES project, or BOCES policy on page 2760, we're about to embark on a fairly gargantuan transformation of our school system, and I'm wondering, have the BOCES had time to percolate? Have they had time to do what they were meant to do, which was create partnerships between regions?
Mr. President, it's a good question from the senator from Chittenden. One thing I can say is that the opportunity to create BOCES has now been in existence for a year, and this is where the lesson learned came from, is that several districts are looking at banding together for business purposes to reduce costs, and that's where we found that the grant was better served upfront in the application process rather than after the fact. But in relation to the legislation that is in the two chambers, knowing that we don't actually know the end result of that legislation, we thought it best to continue with recognition that this BOCES startup grant process should be amended in the event that the larger transformation bill does not come to fruition. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm wondering, one other question about BOCES. I'm wondering why the language around supervisory unions versus supervisory districts.
Mr. President, good idea. I mean, good observation from the senator from Chittenden. I would have to go back before third reading and take a look at why there's a distinction between supervisory union and supervisory district. The idea of the BOCES is pretty clear. Again, the senator was an alumni of that discussion in committee a year ago. And I'd have to take a look to refresh my memory on that distinction. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the senator. And I have a question for a different senator, if I may.
You may.
The senator from Chittenden Southeast.
The senator from Chittenden Southeast is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. I worked a lot on the literacy bill last year, and I am curious about some of this new language, and I really appreciate the work. We have some very passionate reading advocates in Vermont, and I'm wondering, was this approved by those reading advocates, Mr. President?
Mr. President, I don't know exactly who the senator is referring to, but I believe the answer is yes. We had those who are formally charged within AOE and by their districts to work on literacy education, work outside of our committee process with those very passionate literacy tutors and advocates to come together on this specific language.
Thank you, Mr. President. And last question, was this language also approved by the Agency of Education, who I know is working really hard on literacy at the moment?
Mr. President, they were part of the process that led to this outcome. I cannot recall if we asked them for their affirmative support for this language, but they did not oppose it and were involved in the drafting.
I thank the senator and thank you, Mr. President.
I would now recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast. Are you offering an amendment? You have an amendment in the calendar.
Mr. President, I just wasn't sure if others might have questions. Do we have a motion on the table besides?
There's a question, but the question will be changed if you offer your amendment.
I have a question.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Yeah, no, and so that everyone understands, you can offer your amendment now, or you can wait. If your amendment passes, then questioning can be on your amendment and the underlying bill afterwards. Or if you have more questions on the underlying bill, that can take place now as well. It's however you would like to proceed. I just called you out because you were next on the calendar.
Mr. President, I would ask for a brief,
We'll
very brief.
we'll take a brief recess.
Right now.
Yeah, okay.
Will the Senate please come to order? I recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast for her proposal of amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I get to the one hyphenated word amendment that you'll see in the calendar on page 2773, I do want to say that I believe the senator from Rutland, the taller at heart senator from Rutland, was being quite modest as he went through the cell phone free schools bill. I think as many in the chamber can appreciate, this has been a long debated matter, and one that has always had a questionable fate, because it does open up, a lot of passionate feelings and issues for folks. But it really was a team effort to feel good and proud about introducing this into our miscellaneous education bill in a way that garnered quite a bit of support, even from those who want to make sure we do this in a measured way that works alongside our schools. Much of the language that you see, we compressed the highlights of the testimony on this whole section on cell phone free schools into about 2 legislative days, committee time days, whereas we got that list of witnesses to hear the highlights from our House counterparts, the House Committee on Education, who took about 3 weeks of testimony on this section. So while there were some minor changes that we made based on our own testimony, we also want to thank the other chamber and the members there who have done a lot of diligent work on this section. Now to the very small amendment. Mr. President, we did look at a change. Originally, the language under the cell phone use prohibition had only applied to academic purposes. And there was a request from some of the advocates in the room that we add athletic or co-curricular purpose, mostly for safety if kids are out, on top of a mountain or in another state for a field trip or event. that we just clarify in the language that anytime an administrator approves that use, it shall be allowed. And some of those who carefully drafted the House language and the, representatives of the maybe 2,000 parents and guardians and family members who are part of the Coalition for Phone-Free Schools took a look at that, and they were worried that it made it too broad. And so they requested this addition of school-sponsored before athletics. So now we are recognizing that an administrator does have indeed control over school-sponsored athletic events, and that should be something that when there is a coach or an administrator supervising the students' activities, that they do not give a blanket exemption, but that they take their responsibility seriously to approve that cell phone use at that time. That, Mr. President, is the extent of the amendment on behalf of myself and the senator from Rutland.
Senator from Chittenden, is this a question on the amendment?
I don't think that it is.
We'll pass presumably pass the amendment first, and then you're free to question on anything. The question is, shall the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Education be amended as moved by the senator from Chittenden Southeast and the senator from Rutland? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Education. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not totally sure which the right senator from Rutland is to interrogate. I think for my first question, I will start with the tall senator from Rutland.
The senator from Rutland is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm wondering who the committee heard from on sections 17 and 18 specifically.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator from Chittenden highlight the title for?
These are the sections on cell phone and social media use in schools.
Let me skim through the testimony list. I believe we heard from the School Boards Association, Vermont School Boards Association. We heard from, I believe, the NEA. Again, I'm just going through the list.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. I realize this is kind of a...
Vermont Superintendent Association, Vermont Principals Association, the interim director of operations from AOE. And my pages are now out of order. Vermont Independent Schools Association. And I believe, well, that's what I have on my list.
Okay, and all of those folks came in to speak to the ban on cell phones in schools?
Yep, Mr. President, yes, both the ban on cell phones in schools and also the use of social media for school communications with students.
Thank you. Was there any testimony, well, I'm going to frame this with just a little bit of information. Years back, the ACLU did a report on sort of bias within enforcement in our schools, and I'm wondering if there was any testimony as to how that might be avoided in enacting a policy like this.
Mr. President, that's a good question. The ACLU did not provide testimony, but as you heard with the delivery from the reporter on that section, there are a variety of exceptions, or at least considerations for exception, based on a number of different scenarios, such as McKinney-Vento, which relates to homelessness, that we want to make sure that if a student's family is experiencing homelessness, that the agencies have the opportunity to reach out for coordinating housing for the particular evening, as an example. There's exemptions for student athletes, for heart rate monitoring, for performance, and such. But I believe those are fairly clearly outlined in the report.
I thank the senator. I now believe I have questions for one of the other senators from Rutland.
The other senator from Rutland is interrogated.
How many other states have bans like this?
Can you say that again, please?
Are there other states that have bans on cell phones?
Yes, I think there's 11 states currently that ban, and almost verbatim to our original language.
And in those states, has there been noticed any increase in instances of biased enforcement?
Any decrease?
Increase?
No, not that I know of.
Was there any testimony specifically to that point?
Yes, there was.
Okay. Hold on. I appreciate that. Did you hear from any school behavior teams about this particular instance? School social workers, people who work with students who might be struggling?
We did. We listened to a psychologist. We've listened to a number of superintendents that supported it.
Okay.
Mr. President.
I thank the senator. I have concerns about this, and I have concerns that we didn't hear from the Office of Racial Equity or the ACLU. The report from the ACLU years back around enforcement of policies writ large in our schools showed a stunning bias impacting children with disabilities, children from low-income households, children of color, and I certainly want to create spaces within our schools where children can learn how to safely use social media and cell phones. And so I have significant concern, particularly in that the people we task to make sure that our policies are fair and not being implemented in a biased way were not brought to the table to respond to this. Also, having worked as a school social worker, I can think of plenty of instances in which this type of ban would have created huge issues for families, huge issues in the classroom that would be really difficult to navigate. I'm just really struggling with this part of the bill, and I'm happy to connect between now and third reading to hopefully answer some of my concerns. And so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know that I can fully allay the concerns of the senator from Chittenden Central, but I did want to add a few other things because we had some communication from other House members who are not on the Committee of Jurisdiction, specifically wanting us to make sure that we looked at this issue and went a little deeper. And that's where the McKinney-Vento language came from. Mr. President, I would say first and foremost, the cell phone prohibition section of the bill does not take immediate effect. It asks for a model policy from the Agency of Education. And we formally and informally can recommend that they include the Office of Racial Equity in that work, which I hope they would otherwise. And then our districts that have greater sensitivity or need to be sensitive to English learners or families who are in the hotel motel program would be able to depart from that model policy in how they drafted their language. We did have more specific back and forth email communication with some counselors in districts that have implemented a cell phone prohibition. And they felt that it actually made the students feel less visible or less singled out if they were part of the re-socialization that kids are experiencing without cell phones, and that they could be present, a warm presence for that student if they are having some kind of out of school emergency. They can help with that communication and be a facilitator in that regard without the student sort of needing to cling to a cell phone that might give them life-saving or housing information that they need. And finally, I just want to say, perhaps back to the groundbreaking nature of this particular segment of the bill, we are following in the footsteps of other states in the cell phone prohibition bell-to-bell piece. But I particularly want to give credit to the House and Senate initial sponsors of this bill. There are, I believe, no other states that have implemented a social media ban for official school business. So we did take a lot of additional testimony on that piece. And in a way, we hope to see these go hand in hand, that you can't, you know, on the one hand, tell students cell phones are bad for you and not to use them, and then try to make them participate in social media activities in order to be a part of academic or co-curricular offerings. So we, on behalf of the committee, I suppose, we feel good about the testimony that we took and the careful way that we are trying to implement this. And we will, I hope, continue to hear back from anyone in the field who wants to raise concerns, which we started to work on addressing with some of those exception pieces of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to just express my gratitude and support for this bill, and particularly the cell phone portion of it. I am the only active K-12 public school teacher in the body, and as I've stated last year, I've taken away many cell phones from many students. And so I've been very invested in this question since we started, and had questions at the beginning, but I feel that we've, where the language has landed is in a good place. And particularly as someone who is going to need to enforce whatever we are instituting here. I'm very grateful for the work, for the careful work of the committee, and also that there is some, I think, reasonable flexibility. That there are multiple ways that schools can meet the obligations that are forthcoming from this bill. So just want to say I'm supportive and grateful. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was not going to speak to this, but I will. The bill is currently in Senate Health and Welfare. We did not have time to take testimony on it as it's an S bill. And I think that I think if you polled our committee, you would find complete agreement with the work that's been done, with great gratitude for that work. And obviously we know that mental health is a significant issue for kids in schools and elsewhere, particularly as a result of the pandemic, where they become isolated with their cell phones and other social media. So to have this go forward at this time is exceptional. And so the senators from Rutland who worked so hard on this and introduced the bill should be thanked as well. So thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had one last question. Thank you. It's for the senator from Rutland, the initial reporter of the bill.
Senator from Rutland is interrogated.
I'm wondering about on page 2770, the moratorium on approval of new approved independent schools. That new section B talks about converting a therapeutic approved independent school to a non-profit organization. I was wondering if the reporter of the bill could explain that a little bit more. Is that a school that would go from like being a privately owned school to a nonprofit status? I would love to hear more.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the senator from Chittenden. It's a good question on how this exception got into the legislation. So specifically, the Mill School is a for-profit therapeutic approved independent school. They are in the process of shifting to a nonprofit recognized school. They wanted to ensure that they could continue to provide services to Vermont's special education students and not fall through the cracks and have to go through the application process to then again be vetted as a approved independent, therapeutic approved independent school. And we took consideration in the committee and thought that that was certainly an appropriate request, and that's why we drafted the language and inserted it into the bill in section 16. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank the reporter of the bill as well.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have proposed to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe there is one more amendment to be offered. Let me first say, I am very comfortable being vertically challenged. This amendment is being offered by, guess what, all three Rutland County senators and the two from Addison County as well. And it's occasioned by a situation that exists currently at the Stafford Technical Center in Rutland in terms of CTE attendance. There is a waiting list of, at times, up to 200 students who would like to be able to attend Stafford Technical Center, but they are put on a waiting list. So we were contacted by the Hannaford Technical Center in Addison District and asked whether we would support this move to allow, and I'll just read, you can follow along on page 2774, that in the subsection B of that amendment, secondary students may apply for enrollment into programs offered at CTE centers outside their service region when the center in their service region does not offer the program in which they wish to enroll, or they're not able to enroll in the program of their choice. So simply put, beginning in the next school year, a regional center, a CTE center, may provide transportation to and from that other technical center if they so choose. And again, this would be limited to a school district CTE that has a waiting list for enrollment, or when a student has interest in a program not being offered in the student's assigned CTE center. As I understand the statute, this simply codifies what's already in law, but we wanted to put it in as an amendment just to point out the fact, and it may exist in other regions of the state where certain CTA centers or CTE centers are full, but they would be able to accept students from a neighboring district if possible. So that's the amendment, and I would ask for concurrence.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended, and should it be further amended? I believe that's the question. Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on behalf of the Education Committee, we did have the opportunity to coordinate testimony on the amendment. We did take a straw poll, and we voted 5-1-0 in favor of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the, what's the first one? Okay. I went through it. Shall the Senate proposal proposed to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended, should it be further amended as offered by the senators from Rutland. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 480. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up H 231, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes for immediate action.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules to take immediate action on H 231, an act relating to technical corrections of fish and wildlife. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am.
Hang on.
Oh.
Please, sorry. Second reading. Okay, I don't. So. Yes, you are. We have on the calendar for action H 231, which was passed by the House on February 18th of 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears in today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with the proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Natural. Affecting the expenditures of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy, with further proposal of amendment as found in today's calendar. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 231, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes.
I now recognize the senator from Washington for the report of the committee.
I'm going to ask for a quick recess.
We will take a brief recess.
Everyone's gone.
Will the Senate please come to order? I recognize the senator from Washington, Senator Watson, for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my apologies for the confusion. I am, there's going to be a little bit of switching of who's reporting some stuff, I believe. I am pinch hitting for the senator from Addison, who's not in the room. So this bill, H 231, became sort of affectionately known in our committee as the frog bill, because it does deal with many issues related to wildlife, but particularly the frog section sort of jumped out at folks. So I'm going to be going through some of the sections of this bill, and then that was divided. The sections will be divided for reporting between myself and the senator from Rutland, who seems to be out of the room as well. So I'm going to report my sections, and then we'll see if the other senator appears. And we're going to go from there, and it's okay. So I'll be jumping around a little bit, but I'll tell you what sections I am in. Starting with section 1, this is about a definition related to pickerel, which is in statute and actually ought to be taken out because it could be misunderstood or understood to allow for the taking of a protected species of fish called muskie. And this definition is actually no longer used in statute, so it's okay to strike it. Section 2, there is an existing ban on the destruction of nests for birds, but there's an exception to that, and if you need to protect a building, and the nest threatens that. However, we're creating an exception to that, so it's an exception to an exception, particularly if the nest has eggs or chicks in it, then you have to leave it until that is no longer true. I'm going to jump now to section 7. This is, we're again going with the theme of fish for a little while here. There's some fishing changes. So currently there are some situations that a person might have that would allow them to have a free license, for example, if they are blind. This is a different provision that would allow for free fishing licenses for people with developmental disabilities. Actually, before this, we had some very sweet testimony from a man with developmental disabilities who loves fishing, but for whom the fishing license is a burden. And so we extended this free fishing license to folks with disabilities. Again, keeping with the fishing theme, Section 8 allows the commissioner to designate Labor Day as free mentored fishing weekend. So if you don't have a fishing license and perhaps you are learning to fish, that you could go with someone who does have a fishing license to go fishing over this weekend. Section 9 changes the permit requirements for fishing tournaments. I believe there is a single fishing tournament fee currently, but this would, among other small changes, I would amend the fees to be determined by how many participants are anticipated in that tournament, and the fee is greater with more participation. Okay, so I'm going to skip over to section 13, and I think of section 13 through 13, 15, and 16 as going somewhat together. And the motivation here is that we are experiencing in Vermont an unfortunate uptick in the amount of, I guess I would call it illegal trade in amphibian and reptile species that are coming from Vermont and being sold in other countries for an incredible amount of money. And so Section 13 prohibits the taking of reptiles and amphibians. And there's a word in here that we had a lot of discussion about, which was that it prohibits the intentional taking of reptiles and amphibians. And the reason for that word is because I think we've all had the unfortunate experience of either running over a frog with our car, or one gets caught in a lawnmower, that kind of thing, and nobody intends for that to happen, but we've all had that experience, and it's unfortunate and sad, but we wanted to make sure that that we're distinguishing here between intentional and unintentional taking, particularly like if somebody, is just shooting at turtles for target practice, that is intentional. That is not okay, and so that would be an intentional kind of taking. However, if you are a fan of, let's say, frog legs, and you're used to catching those on your own, then you could still potentially do that, as there is a rulemaking here that would allow for the taking of amphibians that are common, widespread, and abundant. And so there may be some ability to continue to do that. But the reality, unfortunately, is that most reptiles and amphibians in Vermont are under a lot of habitat and just environmental pressures, and the populations are unfortunately in significant decline. So I'm going to skip here to 15 and 16 for a second, because this is about the transport, importation of wild animals and the taking of threatened and endangered species. These sections make it clear that the commissioner, the person must obtain a permit in order to import. So this is under current law. Somebody must obtain a permit in order to transport, import, so into or even within a wild animal. So this section makes it clear that this authority applies to reptiles and amphibians, and it's that particularly because the amount of money that someone can get for these things in other countries can be very large. It provides that a person who violates the section would be subject to the penalties for big game, and may also be subject to additional penalties reasonable to mitigate the potential economic benefit that they could get from that trade. And then I'm going to jump back to section 14, which is about the import and possession of a particular species known as pond sliders. This is a kind of turtle. And you might think of invasive species as a plant. Like I think it's a pretty common thing to think of the kinds of invasive species that we might find as plants in our woods. But it turns out that this particular kind of pond slider does thrive actually pretty well in our climate, but it can be very abundant once it's in the wild, and actually ends up pushing out native species. So it is an invasive kind of turtle, but it's also a common pet. And so what unfortunately happens is that somebody might have a turtle as a pet, and then the kid grows up, doesn't want the turtle anymore, or maybe someone wants to have like a free willy kind of moment and just releases it into the wild. That ultimately is actually really bad for the native species of turtles. So section 14 prohibits a person from importing or possessing or selling a pond slider turtle in the state unless they are legally acquired as a pet before July 1st of this year, or they legally acquired it from a person that had a permit to deal these turtles at that point. And we had some good conversation about this section, particularly, trying to think of, if you have a pet dealer who has these in their inventory, and then suddenly it's no longer legal to sell them, what's to prohibit them from just releasing them into the wild? We want to make sure that that doesn't happen as well. And we talked about it actually in the context of the plastic bag ban that we had a few years ago, that allowed people to sell or use their inventory, but they just couldn't acquire any new ones. And so that provision is in here as well. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Sections 17 and 18 I think of as going together because they are about the confidentiality of the listed threatened and endangered species locations. So some species, if they're threatened and endangered, if at a certain level, it's important that that their locations be kept confidential. And what we were finding is that there were actually places in which, well, parts of law, I guess I would say, particularly the process of going through a planning process at the local level, let's say, where the locations of some of these species would be identified. And so these sections make it clear that you have to keep these locations confidential, even in the processes of planning, et cetera. So those conclude my sections of the bill, and I will turn it over to the center-seated senator from Rutland.
Senator from Rutland is recognized.
So I'll be reporting technical corrections to Fish and Wildlife sections mostly pertaining to uniform violations and criminal penalties. Section 3, 10 VSA, section 4502, uniform point system, amends the section that assigns points against a person's license for fish and wildlife violations. The proposed changes consolidate certain currently listed violations, eliminate certain citations that are no longer correct, and move certain violations to higher point assessments. I won't go over but there are 10 point, 20 point. I think if you get to 30 points, you lose your license. So I won't go over them. If anybody wants to know the specific violations and what points they're carried, they can get with me on third reading. One of the reasons they've done this, and in particular, fines have been raised and point assessments have been increased because Vermont's not a very big state, and it's pretty much in keeping with the violations and fines from other states where we don't want them to say, oh, let's go to Vermont and violate Fish and Wildlife because the fine's only $50 and they probably won't try it anyway. So section 4 is section 4505, shooting from a vehicle or across the road. It clarifies that a person shall not carry or possess a rifle, air rifle, that's, I'll get into that in a minute, an arrow rifle, pre-charged pneumatic rifle, or shotgun in a motor vehicle while loaded. Section 4705B1C provides that a person shall not possess a crossbow in a motor vehicle, vessel, airplane, etc., unless it is uncocked in a vehicle, primarily for safety reasons. And that they were going to actually have to get out and go through some motions to be able to load that to take a wild game illegally. It provides a definition of section B3 provides a definition of an air rifle, arrow rifle, and pre-charged pneumatic rifle. Believe it or not, there are rifles that are pneumatic or air powered that are just as accurate and have the same velocity and range as a firearm. Current law provides that a violation of the use of waters rule adopted under 10, I think that's this one, hold on. I did. Yeah. Okay, section 5 would allow violations of the use of waters rule to be enforced as a civil violation under the Vessels and Water Sports chapter of Title 23. Section 6, VSA, Section 1102, Judicial Bureau, use of water rules violation. The Judicial Bureau is a state court where civil violations are assessed. Section 6 adds to the Judicial Bureau authority the jurisdiction over violations of the use of waters rule as adopted under 10 VSA Section 142. Section 10 VSA Section 4518, big game violations, definitions, and fines. Section 10 amends the definition of big game violation and increases the fines for violations. 4518A increases the fine for the first violation from a $1,000 maximum to a $2,000 maximum, and from a $400 minimum to a $500 minimum. This subsection also increases the maximum fine for a second and subsequent violation from $4,000 to $5,000, and increase the maximum imprisonment from 60 days to 180 days. This is primarily to bring us up to fines and sentences with neighboring states for similar violations, as I said before. 4818B defines a big game violation to mean violations relating to taking, possessing, transporting, buying, or selling of big game. Violations related to threatened and endangered species. Violations related to taking fish and game while under a criminal suspension. Violations related to the trade in covered animal parts or products. Interfering with hunting, fishing, or trapping, or illegal commercial importation or possession of wild animals. Section 11 and 12, court jurisdiction venue for fish and wildlife violations. Currently, fish and wildlife violations are criminal violations, except for a few specific violations, which are civil violations adjudicated in the Judicial Bureau. But most people don't know fish and wildlife violations are criminal and simply accept the penalty. The criminal courts also are covered, and fish and wildlife violations at times are not prosecuted because of lack of time or capacity. Section 11, 10 VSA 4552 provides that the criminal division of Superior Court has exclusive jurisdiction over fish and wildlife violations, except for violations related to 10 VSA 4572 and chapters 123 and 124, sale of covered animal parts. Section 12, 10 VSA section 4572 amends the list of fish and wildlife violations that are civil penalty violations subject to jurisdiction of the Judicial Bureau and not the criminal division. Section 4572 provides that except for big game offenses and under revocation offenses, any fish and wildlife violation not already listed as a minor child violation shall be charged as a minor violation, provided that the offender has no prior history of fish and wildlife violations. There is no need to seize evidence in order to further investigate the violation. There is no need for a criminal warrant or further investigation. The violation, and there is no possibility of or forfeiture. If a violation is not eligible to be a minor violation, the violation will be treated as criminal. Section 19, repeal of compensation of persons suffering damage by deer and black bear. Currently, a farmer who does not post his land against hunting is entitled to reimbursement of up to $5,000 for crop and other damage caused by deer or bear. The Department of Fish and Wildlife requests that this reimbursement entitlement be struck. Not that there aren't bear and deer damage, because there are, but Fish and Wildlife think that that should be adjudicated by the Agency of Agriculture. Section 20, effective dates. This act takes effect on July 1st, 2025, except that Section 7, providing a free fishing license to persons with developmental disabilities, shall take effect January 1, 2026. And Section 13 is related to the taking of reptiles and amphibians, shall take effect January 1, 2027. And now, Mr. President, I yield back to the senior senator from Washington.
Senator from Rutland yields to the
Not senior senator. I stand corrected.
to the senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that, I believe, concludes our initial report of the bill. Thank you.
I recognize the senator from Chittenden North, Senator Matos, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Finance Committee really zoned in on 4 different sections of the bill. The free licenses for the individuals with developmental disabilities, the change of the makeup of fishing tournament fees, doing it now based on participants versus a flat rate, the big game violations, and the free mentored fishing weekend. And your Senate committee found a de minimis impact of these sections of the bill. And we also want to say we appreciate the report that will come back about the free licenses for those individuals with developmental disabilities, just to really get a true impact of that, because right now we won't know until the provision is taken up and the program is utilized. So on a 4-0-3 vote, your Finance Committee approves the bill. Thank you.
I now recognize the senator from Washington, Senator Perchlik, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this amendment is on page 2813. And this amendment was brought to us by the committee member that we have that is also on the Natural Resources and Energy Committee, dealing with other A&R matters related to the Climate Superfund bill from last year, some technical corrections and updates that are needed there. So there's 6 sections, 6 changes, 5 of them are added sections and then changed to the effective dates to take into these other 5 sections. There's the new section 20 is a report on the resilient implementation strategy that was already required. It was required in January 15 this year, but because of delays that wasn't possible, so it moves it to September 15, 2025, that they have to report this resilience implementation strategy. The 5 items that were required in the strategy are still the same 5. It's really just a change of the date of when that needs to be submitted to the committees listed, the legislative committees listed there. Section 21, the second edition, moves an implementation date from July 26 to July 27 for making rules related to the Climate Superfund bill. Section 22, the third section added, this just deals with this term during the covered period. This is just kind of grammatical corrections to make it clear of what was covered during the covered period. And then in the second sentence there, it didn't need to list it there since it clarified that in the paragraph above. Section 23, the fourth instance, this makes just some clarity on the greenhouse gas emissions language when they're kind of figuring out what the emissions were, to make that clear on what they're calculating. Section 24 is another pushback in dates from January 15, 26 to January 27th that the treasurer has to report on the costs. There's also in that section, section 24, there's a correction to the name of the committee, the Ways and Means, or no, the Energy Committee, the Environment and Energy Committee has changed name, so that's just now listing the correct name of the committee. And then the effective dates. So the effective dates were struck, and these are the new effective dates. This B section of the effective dates are all the original section dates of the bill, dealing with all the recommended amendment that you just heard from Center Natural Resources and Energy. And A is the sections that we added, and that makes those take effective on passage, since this work is by A&R is happening now, so we wanted to have that effective on passage. So this recommendation from your Committee on Appropriations that the bill ought to pass as amended by Natural Resources and further amended by Appropriations was voted on in the calendar. It says a 6-1-0 vote on the entire bill. It really was 6-0-1. On the amendment, though, to be clear and fair to those that voted against it, that we took a straw poll on the amendment, and that vote was 4-3. But then once that passed, the vote was 6-0-1 on the full bill as recommended by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. And that's my report. Thank you.
The question is, shall the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy be amended as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have amended the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations. I understand that the senator from Orleans has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is hopefully very, very small and very uncontroversial. And I appreciate our Senate Secretary's office for being very quick in getting this written up and printed out and given out to everybody. As I was reading through the bill along with Senator from Natural Resources, the section on Labor Day weekend caught me. One unlicensed angler with one licensed angler, and the thought occurred to me, what if a parent wants to bring their kids out fishing on Labor Day weekend, they're unlicensed, who gets to hold the fishing pole? So my amendment is to put it to up to 4 unlicensed anglers along with 1 licensed angler. I thought that'd be a little bit wider and allow parents to have a little bit more flexibility with bringing their kids fishing on Labor Day weekend. So I ask the Senate's support of that amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Wider angle, you're saying.
A wider angle.
Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, as the youngest of 4 kids, I fully support this amendment.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am appreciating this amendment. Would love to ask for a very brief recess just to check in with the Senate Natural Resources Committee and just get their opinions.
We'll take a brief recess. He doesn't even know we're here, John. Here we go. Will the Senate please come to order? I believe the question is, shall the report of the Committee on Natural Resources as amended be further amended as offered by the Senator from Orleans? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the fifth of 5 children, I find the amendment rather non-inclusionary, but still support the concept. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. We, I believe, have passed out to you a newer version of this amendment. Is that accurate? I will explain this, and it is listed as coming from Senator Douglas, so I don't want to, I'm happy to explain it. So we appreciated his amendment, and but upon investigation, discovered that you don't need a license to fish if you are under the age of 15. And so that's already covered, but let's say that you're an older child at 15 or 16 and you've never learned to fish and you want to go fishing with your family, and maybe there's multiple people that in order to honor the sentiment, added a clause to the original amendment to say up to 4 unlicensed anglers aged 15 years or older. So there could be more people, but perhaps a little older. And if they're younger, they don't need a license anyway. So if there's anything you want to add. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
I interrogate of the chair, please, of Senate Natural Resources.
The Senate Natural Resources Chair is interrogated.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'm concerned with 15 and above, just because that means somebody could be fishing with 3 unlicensed people of any age above 15. And that concerns me in terms of the license fees that we rely on to run that department. So I am concerned that we aren't limiting that with 21 and under or 18 and under, but to just do 15 and up, to me, is not responsible for to our Fish and Wildlife Department.
Is there a question in there, Senator?
Yes. Did the committee discuss that? And are they comfortable with having 3 unlicensed people of any age 15 and above?
Thank you, Mr. President. We did briefly discuss that as a possibility, and we're open to it.
You're opening, Mr. President, they're opening to that loss of revenue?
So this is, thank you for that question. This is just for a Labor Day weekend. So this may ultimately, at least speaking for myself now, but this may actually get even more folks interested in fishing from that one weekend experience, and that may ultimately lead to more revenue as if they decide to buy licenses.
Thank you. I had forgotten the fact that it was just limited to Labor Day weekend, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had neglected to report that the vote in committee on this bill in general was 5-0.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Natural Resources as amended be further amended as offered by the Senator from Orleans? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and we have approved the amendment. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy as amended? Whoa. The senior senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. And may I interrogate the junior senator from Washington?
The senator is interrogated.
Just so we're all represented. Mr. President, I'm going to ask this question on behalf of parents everywhere. I know the junior senator has a young son. At one point, I had a young son. And one summer, he developed a great fascination for toads. I would find toads in his pocket. I found toads in the bathtub. I found toads everywhere, frequently in different stages of dying from being in the pocket, to the point where we had to discuss getting a toad cage for the humane treatment of toads who are cold-blooded. I just want to make sure that, and my daughter was into earthworms the same year, but I don't think they're covered in this. I just want to make sure that we are not making outlaws out of a whole bunch of 3- and 4-year-old children who frequently develop interest attachments to amphibians in their backyard.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that question. I'm hopeful that you will appreciate the answer in that technically right now it is illegal to take amphibians without a license. And so this language, because it includes the word intentionally, would presumably protect our youngest folk if they want to, go and capture frogs because they love them. However, it is also worth saying that there is rulemaking that is intended to be a part of this to sort that all out, particularly for just these kinds of situations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fortunately, my son has moved to Canada, and I'm not going to worry about him being arrested.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Turns out on this frog bill, the facts slipped through my fingers. The vote was 6-1-0. We did have a person that voted against the bill coming out of appropriations. It was on the amendment that there was an abstention, so to speak. So the vote was 6-1-0 out of appropriations. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have ordered third reading of H231. We now have on the calendar S109, Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. When we received S109 back from the House, there was about almost an additional 20 pages added of task forces, studies, reports, and a number of substantive policy changes, some of which include or are related to bail and appeals to the Supreme Court. And the fun thing is that we received this on the day that morning committees stopped meeting. So I would like our committee to be able to do due diligence on such significant changes. But given the time constraints that we have and the fact that morning committees are not technically meeting right now, I would order S109 to lie.
That is a vote. The senator from Windham has moved that S109 be ordered to lie. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We are now moving to HCR 151. I gotta find my script. That's a good one. Senator has requested floor consideration of a House concurrent resolution. The text of HCR 151 appears on today's action calendar on page 2797. The question is, shall the resolution be adopted in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have adopted the resolution in concurrence. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I realize I was remiss. I had spoken with the Chair of Natural Resources about moving H231 through remaining stages of passage. I also spoke with the Minority Leader about that. So at this time, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to move H231 through all remaining stages of passage.
Senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules to move H231 through all remaining stages of passage. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries.
And if I might, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden.
I would complete that by suspending our rules in order to message the actions just taken on H231 to the House forthwith.
We have not passed the bill, says the Senate Secretary. Perhaps that's what we should do next. We now have third reading of H231. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading.
H231, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Senator from Chittenden.
And at this time, Mr. President, I would move that our rules be suspended in order to message the actions just taken on H231 to the House forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden Southeast has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our actions on H231 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and motion carries. Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the rules be suspended and that all the gubernatorial appointees will appear in today's calendar starting on page 2834, whose names are not underlined, be taken up together and confirmed without debate.
The senator from Rutland has moved that the rules be suspended and all gubernatorial appointees who appear in today's calendar, whose names are not underlined, be taken up together and without debate, and that they be confirmed by the Senate. We'll take a brief recess. Senator Rutland, would you come up? Okay.
I took the Marine Corps into the.
Okay. Will the Senate please come to order? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I withdraw my initial motion?
You may.
And now move that the rules be suspended and that all gubernatorial appointees who appear in today's calendar, starting on page 2834, whose names have been on for a minimum of 2 days, be taken up immediately and together and confirmed without debate.
Senator from Rutland has moved that the rules be suspended and that all gubernatorial appointees whose names appear today in the calendar for more than 2 days? More than 2 days, whose names are not underlined, be taken up together and without debate, and that they be confirmed by the Senate. If that confused you, you're not alone. Is everyone ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I further move that the rules be suspended and that all the gubernatorial appointees who appear in today's calendar, starting on page 2834, whose names are not underlined, but who have not been on the calendar for a minimum of 2 days, be taken up immediately without debate and confirmed.
The senator from Rutland has moved that the rules be suspended and that all gubernatorial appointees who appear in today's calendars whose names have not been on for more than 2 days be taken up together and without debate, and that they be confirmed by the Senate. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries. We need the senator from Rutland to suspend the rules to take up the next one that is underlined.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I further move that we suspend the rules and now give immediate consideration to the one name in the calendar whose name is underlined.
Senator from Rutland moves that the rules be suspended and that the gubernatorial appointee whose name is underlined in today's calendar be taken up for immediate action to be confirmed by the Senate. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Senator, I guess I've got to read this first, Senator. We have an appointment reported out of committee to take up for confirmation. The appointment is Lindsay Curley as Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development for a term from and including March 1st, 2025 to and including February 28th, 2027, and until a successor is appointed and has qualified. Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for bearing with us. The Senate Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs has voted unanimously, that's the bluff, to recommend that Lindsay Curley be confirmed by the Senate as Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Since 2017, I've watched Lindsay take on each more challenging role in the Scott administration with enthusiasm and grace. Lindsay comes to this important leadership position after 22 years working in Vermont as an employee and 13 years as the owner of a business in Vermont. She is a certified public accountant who grew up and has been educated in Vermont, first in Montpelier and then graduating from St. Michael's College. Lindsay has been an auditor, controller, assistant director of statewide financial reporting, manager of marketing and community relations, and was the owner and CEO of Curley Fuels and Transport and Vermont's Commissioner of Labor from 2016 to 2019, when she was then appointed to her current position as Secretary of ACCD. After 6 years of serving in this role, Lindsay still loves this job. She is most proud of having earned the governor's trust as a leader, being someone he turns to for help setting his top priorities. Whether responding to the economic impacts of an historic pandemic, massive flooding, or advancing statewide housing development, or supporting Vermont's employers through national uncertainty. She has become known for leading with transparency, her steady and thoughtful approach to problem solving, and a strong focus on outcomes. Under her leadership, the agency has delivered results on some of the state's most complex challenges. We've expanded tools to spur housing growth, built innovative public-private partnerships to close workforce development gaps, and championed forward-thinking initiatives to ensure Vermont offers quality jobs that attract and retain a diverse population. She has collaborated closely with local leaders, regional partners, and the legislature to align economic development with community needs, whether revitalizing downtown, strengthening employers, or welcoming new Vermonters. Her ACCD team counts on her to lead by example, step in when needed, and represent the agency with honesty and integrity. She takes pride in the credibility she brings to the table. Vermonters have come to know her as someone who listens, builds relationships, and follows through. Lindsay's a team player, ready to bring her people skills, compassion, and fair-mindedness and experience as an employee and employer to the job of being secretary. We wish her well and look forward to working with her as we tackle these issues together. We ask for the Senate's support in confirming Lindsay Curley as our Secretary of ACCD. Thank you.
The question is, shall the appointment of Lindsay Curley as Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development be confirmed by the Senate? Are you ready for the question?
Roll call.
Roll call has been requested, and when the vote is taken, it shall be by roll. Are you ready for the question? If so, the Secretary shall call the roll.
Senator Baruch.
Yes.
Senator Beck.
Yes.
Senator Bungard. Senator Brennan.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Senator Chittenden. Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Collmore.
Yes.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Douglas.
Yes.
Senator Bueller.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Harrison.
Yes.
Senator Hart.
He said yes.
Senator Hart.
Yes.
Senator Hashim.
Yes.
Senator Heffernan.
Yay.
Senator Ingalls.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes.
Senator Major.
Yes.
Senator Matto.
Yes.
Senator Norris.
Yes.
Senator Pershler.
Yes.
Senator Plunkett.
Yes.
Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Yes.
Senator Bohovsky. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Weeks.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator White.
Yes.
Senator Williams.
Yes.
Senator Bungard. Senator Bohovsky.
The yeas voting 28, the nays 0. The ayes have it, and you have confirmed Lindsay Curley as Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Senator from Chittenden, do we know where we're going next?
Yes. Provisionally. Thank you, Mr. President. I will update the body. Thank you for a productive morning, number one. Number two, as we have been working on these other bills, other people elsewhere in the building have been working on the Ed bill. That has been highly productive. It looks as though we have a path to getting out of here tonight with bill in hand, assuming a series of asterisks, but it looks as though that is a good possibility now. We do have two of our Republican colleagues. We have one on Zoom now, but we have another who has a medical issue. So we are going to adjourn until 4 o'clock. My hope is that we'll have text to look at significantly before 4 o'clock and that our majority leader might call a caucus of the Democratic and progressive senators. I know my counterpart, the minority leader, is thinking of calling a caucus for his people in this 4-hour period. So hopefully we can be making progress in between floor movements, and we would come back at 4 o'clock and immediately take up the language to amend the House language on the Ed bill. So with that brief update, I would move that pending announcements, Senate stand in adjournment until 4 p.m. today.
By way of announcement, I would like to announce the Conference Committee on S12, Senator Hashim, Senator Norris, and Senator Matos. Are there any further announcements? Senator from Chittenden.
The Conference Committee for S-126 will meet briefly at the fall of the gavel, right here, Mr. President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:15, but if you come a few minutes early, we have a little social matter to take care of.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will meet at 1 o'clock to hear a briefing from the Agency of Education on federal funds.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Government Operations will meet at 1:30. It should be a fairly brief meeting.
Senator from Wyndham.
Mr. President, Senate institutions will meet 5 minutes after the gavel to determine a time for a meeting later today.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education is not currently scheduled to meet, but please stand by for the chair to potentially call for an impromptu assembly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 4 o'clock this afternoon.